I'm the CEO of an organisation called Te Hiku Media. It's one of the 21 iwi radio stations in New Zealand. Those are tribal broadcasters. And I want to share with you the origins first so that we've got a clear understanding about where the tribal radio stations, of which there are 21, emerged from. The two founding documents of New Zealand are He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, otherwise known as the Declaration of Independence, and the Treaty of Waitangi, which was signed between the Māori chiefs of various tribes and the Crown of England, who was the colonising force in and around the 1840s. As things would evolve, a lot of atrocities were committed against the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand by the Crown, the English, and the colonising forces that saw language discrimination, land alienation, cultural decline, and things like that really oppress the people. And so a number of claims were taken against the government, and some of those claims brought about the rise of tribal broadcasting in an effort to promote and to ensure the transmission of language and culture through broadcasting. We have a team of people that have been working with and for the tribal communities for more than 30 years. Our station is just over 30 years old, and we are protectors of data. We have interviewed on topical issues, current affairs, for more than 30 years, archiving information. We have one of the largest archives in the tribal radio network. But the members of our tribal groups, of which there are 5 affiliated to our station, Te Reo o Te Hiku o Te Ika, are largely living outside of our traditional area. My name is Peter Lucas, and I am the chairman of the Te Aupōuri tribe, which is one of the 5 tribes of the far north of New Zealand. However, more than 80% of our people, the members of our tribe, live outside of our traditional area. Citizens of the world, if you might, working in Australia, all over the world. But what we find is that people want to be connected with content. And so when we take on board that people are using devices every day to not only communicate, but also consume content, we understand also our role as a radio station and the fact that we needed to plan for a digital switchover. And that digital switchover for us meant live video streaming before Facebook was. In 2014, we started live video streaming through patching a Raspberry Pi to our platform, and of course going live with our iPhones. And that took us into places and spaces where we could provide live content and create and develop an audience of online content consumers. It wasn't happening anywhere else at the time, and we're very proud to say that innovation is a great mover, inspirer, and what it showed us is that we didn't just want to be the users of tools, we wanted to be the developers of them too. And so this gave rise to our decision to develop a philosophy called the whare kōrero, the big marae in the sky, the big meeting house in the sky. And that is where we would store our content. We weren't going to use YouTube, Facebook, or any other platform that is owned by a big tech company as a place to store our content. Because essentially, when you store your content in a place like that, where does the data sovereignty sit? Where does the sovereignty of that data belong? Does it belong to you as a creator anymore? Or have you handed it over to the powers that own those platforms? For us, live content is how we not only share our culture and our language, but it's also how we promote ways, meaningful ways, for people to not only become aware of the content that we create, but also to support on-demand content. We're live streaming content from within our community every month, every week, whether it's sports, whether it's language competitions associated with speech and debate, or kapahaka, and nothing competes with kapahaka. Our achievements to date. I wanted to give you that background because what we developed was the first ever speech-to-text technology that operates at a 92% accuracy rate. That's an 8% error rate. It operates with extreme precision. First in the world for Te Reo Māori, the first for an Indigenous language. For those amongst us that understand languages, Te Reo Māori is a Pacific language. Te Reo Māori is one of the Polynesian languages. It is a sister language to Hawaiian. It is also a sister language to the language of Rapa Nui, the language of Tahiti, the language of the Cook Islands, variations of Te Reo Māori. Of course, it is from the Pacific, and there are two other close families that are related to it, the Micronesian languages and the Melanesian languages. And if we look a little bit further, it is a member of the Austronesian language group, and the Austronesian language group spreads all the way through Indonesia to Madagascar on the east coast of Africa. So when we started to teach computers how to speak our language, it wasn't just about teaching the computer machine learning or natural language processing. It was an expression of self-determination. Not only had we been broadcasting for 30 years, we had the data necessary to do the job. Now, when we're talking about language modeling, there are three essential things that you need. You need compute, you need data, and you, of course, need to know how to operate algorithms. And when I say that, it's like baking bread. You need some water, you need some salt, and you need some flour. Data is the flour, and if you ain't got no flour, you ain't got no bread. Now, we were lucky enough to be supported by NVIDIA, who provided to us the NEMO toolkit, which is a number of GPUs, which meant we could spin our models up in our own environment. We weren't spinning models up in the cloud. We were not teaching computers how to speak Māori at the expensive rate of operating cloud technology. This provided us a way to do it at home. I want to just also talk about amassing 310 hours in less than 10 days, unheard of, tagged and labeled audio data. Those are speech and text pairs. More than 200,000 recordings by 2,500 individuals that wanted to help us do it. Unheard of. And I also want to explain that we are now working with the native Hawaiian language community who are fine-tuning their speech-to-text model off our model. It is the only Pacific model that operates at an accuracy level required to make meaningful fine-tuning a reality for an Indigenous language from the Pacific. And while working with the Kanaka Māori people, we amassed 400 hours of tagged and labeled speech and text pairs from more than 1,300 people, 400 hours in less than a week. So an initial model is being developed as we speak. What I want to share is Indigenous automatic speech recognition is more than recognizing speech. It's about people. It's about place. It is about identity. When we first started to work with our elders, taking into account that the Māori language as a part of the colonization experience that was imported into Aotearoa by the English, meant that our parents and grandparents largely had the language beaten out of them, physically beaten out of them as children when they enter into the school education system. That, of course, has had a devastating impact on natural language transmission, native language transmission. So these efforts are largely associated with language revitalisation efforts through iwi radio, through tribal radio, through providing a platform for not only song and dance, but also topical issue discussion. We took the opportunity to transcribe early archives with our aunts, uncles, and also those older people that are members of our tribe. For us, that was an incredible experience because the reality is that native speakers of Te Reo Māori are dwindling in numbers, and we wanted to do everything that we could to act with urgency. Over the 30 years, we had amassed so many thousands of hours of recorded Māori language that we wanted to create content that could be used for learning and educational purposes. What we quickly worked out is it was going to take us probably 10 times longer to get through the content we had recorded, transcribing it. So we decided to teach computers how to speak Māori. We first developed this web app called Kōrero Māori, which was a way for people to read sentences and have that captured and recorded into our platform, tagged and labelled speech pairs. And you can see right here that in 10 days, 2,500 people quickly, very quickly, helped us achieve our goal. Data is so important. Native speaker data is what is required. Native speaker data from the Pacific is also the key to culture. Language is the key to culture. And when we think about the importance of language, language springs from the life, the landscape, and the vocabulary that is used by native speakers is often imbued with philosophical memory. And so when we take that into account, we recognize that language is the ideal vehicle to transmit culture. And so our platform was a hit. Today, our reading competition, which essentially is what we did, we ran a reading competition. We ran as an iwi radio station, a tribal radio station, a reading competition, and people read every single sentence that was thrown at them. People took us from Kaitaia and Aotearoa to Cambridge University, to Oxford University, to learn about how did we engage with our people. Well, there's a little thing, and it's called cultural intelligence. And so we took that cultural intelligence into our working with other Indigenous people from the Pacific so that we could inspire ways to encourage others to do the same. And this platform was developed for the Olelo Hawaii community, which is a sister language to Te Reo Māori. And again, the purpose of it is to read sentences. Reading those sentences, when you think about it, more than 2,500 people. The oldest one was 93. The youngest one was 6. How do you motivate and inspire people across generations like that to be involved in something like this? That was the question that was on everyone's tongue. And the reality is it represented a Pacific language opportunity. Because Indigenous languages preserve traditional knowledge, for example, about the ocean, the land, and of course the sky, and climate resilience strategies that have been used in the Pacific for more than hundreds of years, and sometimes thousands of years. These are the same tools that are contained within song and dance. And when we think about embracing the linguistic diversity throughout the Pacific, it represents a new opportunity. An opportunity to access traditional knowledge through radio archives. The radio archives represent new and innovative ways to solve solutions to offer solutions for problems we all know are right in front of us. This planet, we all call it home. And so that is why we have a philosophy about saving our language and help save the planet. Because as the United Nations have rightly conveyed to us, research confirms that by 2050, anywhere from 50% to 90% of the world's languages will be a memory. Now, the story of Te Reo Māori is one that had awful experiences through colonization. But that is not the only language of the Pacific that experienced language discrimination. And the people that spoke the language were also harmed. So the body of knowledge that is Māori idiomatic expression, colloquialisms, and of course our entire knowledge of biodiversity is contained within our language. And the phonetical project of teaching computers how to speak Māori is something that requires precision and accuracy, because pronunciation, accent, and the regional variations of the language, and of course the sister languages in the Pacific, continue to represent a special opportunity to not only save the language, but save the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean, particularly in places in the Western Pacific, the water is rising so fast, faster than those places that are actually creating most of the pollution that is causing these effects to happen in the Pacific. I want to raise to our attention that Indigenous languages are dying faster than the biodiversity around us. And when we think about that, it's important to recognize that 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity is in Indigenous territories. So we look at traditional knowledge as a way to understand the world around us. Observation, measurement, data, information, and all these types of things. It offers a way to unlock knowledge, but also it provides a way to access the wisdom needed to apply that knowledge. So our data pipeline, and if you have a data science project, you need to have a data pipeline. It is important to understand that our 24/7 tribal radio station represents a data pipeline of not only natural speech, but also music. And that data pipeline is what supports us to build tech for Indigenous languages in the Pacific. We have developed the first pronunciation model. The pronunciation model is an automatic speech feedback model that provides you with feedback on your pronunciation for learners and intermediate speakers of Te Reo Māori. Our Whare Kōrero, our online platform, which is an app called the Whare Kōrero, you can go to the Google Store or you can go to your App Store on your iPhone and you can download the Whare Kōrero and the Rongo app right now. The Whare Kōrero provides access to 21 tribal radio stations in New Zealand. We are proud to also say that we host that content. We host that content at home. We also created the Kaituhi bilingual transcription platform. That bilingual model is a model that not only recognizes Te Reo Māori, but also recognizes English. Because as speakers of Te Reo Māori, ki te kōrero Māori ahau, ka kōrero Māori ahau. Engari ina hia ahau ki te huri ki te reo Pākehā, I will just start speaking English if I want to. And that's because we're truly bilingual. And being truly bilingual means that we need tools that are bilingual. We don't want to just be the users of the tools. We want to be the developers of the tools so that we can ensure that the work that we are trying to lift off our shoulders enhances ways and us to do more in every second, in every minute, in every hour of our workday. I also want to raise to our attention that we have developed synthetic voices. The synthetic voices in Te Reo Māori are also bilingual. Because when we write in Māori or when we write in English, there are sometimes Māori place names or English words that we use, and as a result of that, we need pronunciation to reflect what is written, and that of course presents its own challenges. M-O-R-E, is that more or is it more? O-N-E, is that one or is that one? So tagging and labeling parts of speech for bilingual context is extremely important. Because there are common benchmarks out there that are not worth a lot of time when it comes to benchmarking Indigenous languages. I want to raise to our attention common benchmarks that are out there in the big world. Flores, of course, FLIRS. These are two, I think, data sets, and to be fair, when we think about benchmarking for low resource languages, minority languages, Indigenous languages, these are languages that are not dominant languages. So the context that these data sets and benchmarks exist in are not relevant to our language. And when I say that, these sentences that were read or apparently translated by professional translators, they make no sense. And when I say no sense, I mean no cultural sense. They're translated sentences from Wikipedia, which is probably great for European languages. But the reality is that in the Pacific peoples, Maori people have an ontology that is unique to the Indigenous people of those lands. I raise that to our attention because these are the benchmarks that are used to tell us how well a tool is performing. And the reality is they don't work very well, the tools that are out there. 50% is the benchmark before somebody throws a tool out there, automatic speech recognition tool. Well, last time I did an exam, 50% wasn't even a pass. So I mean, if we're putting half-baked tools out there, and they are being put out there by organizations that largely represent regimes that look and sound like those that enacted colonization and atrocities in the communities. And for what? For what? To then have the language that was beaten out of our families, our parents, and our grandparents sold back to the grandchildren as a service? Now that's a big slap in the face, isn't it? That raises to our attention the importance of Indigenous data sovereignty. And whilst we taught the computer how to speak our language, created foundational models for Te Reo Māori, our biggest achievement was our data license, the protection of our API tools, because our APIs remain with Te Reo Irirangi o Te Hiko o Te Ika. That is the name of our organization. And we do not allow our APIs to be used for surveillance of our people, tracking of our community members, to further discriminate against our people through persecution, and of course unfairness. Or to build Māori corpora, to then use our tools to develop one's own data set, to then go and reinvent what we've done, mining Māori data for commercial gain. Because essentially our land was already stolen. And when all the land was stolen, all the resources were stolen, that little bit that you had left, once they worked out it had commercial gain, oh, we forgot about something. We forgot about something. So I raise that to our attention because it's really important to know what those situations represent. Māori women are one of the most incarcerated Indigenous female groups in the world. 65% of the New Zealand jail population are Māori women. 55% of the New Zealand jail population are Māori men. When we think about those figures and we also learn that people of Māori descent are only 17% of the New Zealand population, something there tells us that there is an issue around fairness and how people are dealt with in the system that, of course, incarceration is part of. So data is land. Data is land. And when we recognize the importance of radio data, what it represents in terms of natural language processing, radio data is an amazing pipeline of natural language to not only teach computers how to speak language, but also to unlock culture. Because when we work together and save a language, we can unlock those resilient strategies from places like the Pacific that have been a way to not only survive, but to thrive. And that is the story of Te Reo Irirangi o Te Hiku o Te Ika. I now want to show you a couple of our tools. So this is our, I'm going to just bring this over here. This is our platform. And we work with our young people. Kapahaka is a major thing. All the schools compete against one another. Nothing competes with kapahaka for online engagement. We hold people for 7 minutes on our platform, dedicated people that come to our platform for purchase. 7 minutes, which is about the length of a quarter of a performance. I wanted to share that with you guys. I also wanted to share with you how we got everybody involved in our reading competition.
Here, Radiodays on the coast, ki te mahi moni, mo tō rōpū, kia ora, and welcome to the Hopu Kōrero Māori competition. Get a head start on your fundraising this year, folks. First prize, $3,000. Second prize, $2,000. Third prize, $1,000. Your rōpū can also be in to win one of 3 spot prizes of $500. Go to KōreroMāori.com and sign up now. You gotta be in to win. Get 7 of your friends. Every rōpū must have at least 7 members. Every rōpū must read Māori language sentences. And the rōpū with the most points at the end of the whakatatai wins.
And that was way back when social media was like a lot different. But we had a lot of people that joined our reading competition. And we are so grateful for the way that the community got behind our reading competition. We also do all sorts of live performances. The music comes from the performances that we broadcast. So every time we have our own cameras, we have our own video switches, just like what's happening right here, right now. It's an opportunity for us to take the music and then create content that not only is relevant to the community, but it's a way of celebrating the community members. One second. And I just wanted to also show you our speech to text stuff. Tēnā koutou e te iwi ka haere mai ki konei tēnei rā. I am very grateful for the opportunity to showcase to you this particular tool. It hasn't launched yet, but when you think about minutes in different languages, ki te haere koe ki tētahi hui, ka hiahia koe kia tuhituhingia ngā kōrero e kōrero tia ana. Mā te pērā, ka oti a koe te rikoata he hanga kaupapa I whāriki hia. When we think about minutes in any sort of a meeting environment, this not only provides a way to capture minutes, they're time coded of course, but it's a way to create live captions in our language for things like podcasting. The reality is any tool needs to be bilingual, and we speak we speak with a different accent, so that's really important for us. I also want to show you what it meant for us to do this sort of work, because we were extremely aware that there are the non-speaking community, the blind community, there are communities that really are using devices to not only communicate but also to read. What does a screen reader look like for Te Reo Māori? And so we have a very basic prototype here.
I tēnei uiui kōrero tahi ai mātau kia hānei o neke pāna kia ana neke hanga I tēnei wiki. Ai hoki mai ana ia I poneke.
So it provides a way for the vision impaired to access content. It also provides a way for those that are vision impaired to write emails. So our tools now are being showcased throughout universities. Last year I was named one of the 100 most influential people in artificial intelligence by the Time magazine, which was a big honor. And I always think about the role of our community in making things happen. Because if we didn't have the data, like I said, no flour, no bread. Because data is the land. Look, I don't want to go on too much. I'm looking at the time and it is beyond my time limit. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Kia ora.